This is a PlayStation 1, model number SCPH-1001. It is the launch model for the North American region, first released in 1995, and is the only North American consumer model to have RCA jacks and an RFU DC out jack. Every model after this in North America removed these jacks, leaving only the serial I/O, AV multi-out, AC in, and parallel I/O ports, the latter of which was removed in the last generation models of PS1. On the back of the console is 5 black Phillips head screws. Later models added a 6th to the center top of the console, but the launch model doesn't have it. Also, all screws used in PS1s, indeed in most PlayStation consoles overall, are Phillips-based, making taking them apart and repairing them a bit easier than other consoles. Namely, Nintendo consoles which use a lot of Y-head or specialty screws. Once inside the console, all components are pretty well visible. Take off the parallel I/O port cover if you haven't already. The power supply is on the left, the disk drive is in the center, sitting atop the RF shielding of the motherboard, and the controller connectors are on the bottom. Of all the screws in the inside of the console, there are only 3 that are different from the rest. These are the ones that hold the protective metal plate over the controller ports. They are shorter than the rest of the screws, so try not to lose them because you can't use any of the other screws in a pinch. The disk drive is easy to remove as it is only held down by the ribbon cable, power wires, and the top part of the PS1 shell. Two of the regular metal screws still hold down the controller assembly, so remove that and disconnect the ribbon cable so you'll be able to remove the assembly. With all those gone, you can now remove the rest of the screws holding down the components and the RF shield. There will be 2 on the power supply, 1 up by the AV connectors, and about 5 holding down the top RF shield. Don't forget to remove the power cord between the power supply and the motherboard. Once the top shield is removed, the motherboard is revealed. To remove the motherboard and the bottom shielding, there are still 2 screws holding it down by the parallel I/O port. Remove those and both components should come off just fine. The SCPH-1001 could have one of two motherboard revisions. Either the PU7 for the first few months of release, which is comparable to the Japanese launch model, or the PU8, which this console has, which was a revision released after December 1995. Now that the bottom half of the console is disassembled, let's tackle the top. This is far simpler. There are only 4 screws, 2 on the disc tray assembly and 2 on the open button assembly. Remove all 4 and the pieces come apart pretty easily. On the open assembly, it's easier to unhook the little spring here with a pair of tweezers than with your hands. This is a metal plate that holds together the open button and locks down the disc tray. In later models, this is plastic, which wears down and leads to some later models having a stuck open button or other problems keeping the disc tray closed. The plastic gears on the left side of the disc tray can be a little finicky to remove. Just wiggle it a bit upwards and eventually it will come out. Pull the little spring out, then pull out the one on the opposite side. The tray itself can sometimes be a pain to remove, but I found it's easiest if you open the tray all the way and then slip it out. You can also remove the buttons if you want, which I'll show later, but for now I'll just leave them. Mostly because I forgot. This is what the whole console looks like when disassembled and laid out on a table. At this point you can clean the shell without worrying about damaging any components, and address any problems or mods you want to make on the PS1 board without damaging the shell. Now for reassembling the console, we're just going to do all of that again, but in reverse. The bottom RF shield, then the motherboard, then the 2 screws by the parallel I/O port. Next goes the top shield and the power supply, then the 2 screws for the power supply, and the 5 for the top shield. Now the controller port is installed, don't forget the ribbon cable. Then put the metal cover back over the controller port and screw it down with those 3 short Phillips head screws. You can also put back the disc laser assembly now, but remember to attach both the ribbon cable and the power cable for it. Now I'll show you removing the buttons for the top shell because I forgot earlier. It can be done by pushing the tabs on the sides for all 4 removable buttons. One thing to remember is that there's metal springs on both the power and open buttons, which keeps them bouncing back, and on later models it will only be on the open button. Remember to put the springs back in though. I have forgotten to do this before and I have had to disassemble part of a console in order to fix it. The disc tray cover can be difficult to get back into the shell. Remember to slide it back in from a completely open position so that the quarter gear side can slide in. Once the cover is in, put the top shell on its face and put the 2 side bits that hold the disc tray in and control how much it opens. You sort of slide them in, making sure to catch the pegs sticking out of the disc tray cover. On the side with the spring, this can take some practice, as you have to latch the spring in on the gear using this little tab, then push it in the shell with the spring under pressure. Then replace the open mechanism with the metal plate on top. Add the 4 screws back in and then screw them down tight. Only then do use some tweezers to pop the spring on the open mechanism back into place, which lets the open mechanism latch the disc tray cover. With both the top and bottom reassembled, all you have to do is put them back together and screw in the last 5 screws, those black ones from the beginning, into the underside. Once you put the parallel I/O cover back on, that's it! The reassembly of the PS1 is complete. If you enjoyed this little disassembly reassembly of the launch model PS1 for the US region, remember to leave a like, comment, and all that jazz down below, hit that bell notification, and I will see you all in another weird video.